Title: The City of Stars and the Prophecy of the End. In the ancient land of Loria, there was a city unlike any other, perched high above the clouds. Known as the City of Stars, it was said to be the home of the Celestials, beings of unimaginable power who watched over the fate of all worlds. The city sparkled with thousands of radiant lights, each one representing the dreams and aspirations of the people who had once dwelled beneath the heavens. It was here, in the heart of the City of Stars, that the prophecy was first uttered. A prophecy that spoke of the end, the great unraveling of all that had been, and the birth of something far greater. The prophecy was a riddle, an enigma that no one could fully understand, but everyone felt its weight. It began like this: when the stars fall from the sky, the City of Stars will fade. In the shadow of the final night, the prophecy of the end will come to pass. In the City of Stars, there was a mysterious figure known as the Keeper. The Keeper was not a king, nor a queen, but something far more sacred and eternal, guardian of the celestial flame. The light that had sustained the city for eons. The Keeper was chosen by the stars themselves, a child born under the rarest celestial alignment. Each generation, the Keeper was marked by a glowing star upon their brow, a sign of their connection to the divine. Alara was the current Keeper, a young woman whose bright eyes mirrored the very stars that lit up the city. She had always felt a deep connection to the prophecy, hearing its whispers in her dreams. One night, as the moon hung low in the sky, Alara stood at the highest tower of the city, gazing out at the vast expanse of the heavens. The stars twinkled softly, their light dancing like flames in the wind. But something was different. A shadow, subtle yet undeniable, passed over the stars, and Alara felt a chill run through her. The prophecy had been silent for so long, but now it stirred again, like the first tremor of an earthquake beneath the earth. The people of the City of Stars were oblivious to the storm that was gathering in the distance. They continued with their lives, their joy and laughter echoing through the streets, unaware that the end was drawing near. But Alara could not shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. One evening, as she walked through the golden streets of the city, she overheard a conversation between two ancient celestials. Their voices were low, but Alara caught the words clearly. The stars are beginning to fade. The end is coming, faster than we anticipated. Alara's heart skipped a beat. She had never heard such words spoken aloud. The Celestials had always been cryptic about the prophecy, but now they were acknowledging it, and fear lingered in their eyes. Racing to the temple, Alara sought the counsel of the elders, the wise ones who had lived for centuries. Their knowledge of the stars and the prophecy unparalleled. The eldest of them, a frail old man named Astris, met her with a knowing gaze. "Alara, my child," he said softly, "the prophecy was never just a story. It was a warning. The stars are dying, and with them, the City of Stars. We are nearing the final hour. The end of this age is upon us." Alara felt the weight of his words settle deep in her soul. The city she loved, the city she had sworn to protect, was destined to fall. But why? And what was the meaning of the prophecy? She had to find the answers. Astris handed her a star-shaped pendant, a symbol of the celestial flame. "This will guide you," he said. "You must journey beyond the stars to find the truth. Only then can you prevent the end, or embrace it." Alara took the pendant, her fingers trembling. She had always felt the pull of something greater, something beyond the city, and now she was being called to seek it out. With no time to lose, Alara gathered supplies and made her way to the ancient temple at the edge of the city. There, hidden deep beneath the earth, lay a gateway that would lead her to the other world, where the truth of the prophecy awaited. As she stepped into the portal, the world around her seemed to shift and warp, and she was no longer in the City of Stars. She was traveling through time and space, through endless voids and vast landscapes. It was a journey that no one had ever returned from. But Alara was determined. She had to know the truth, no matter the cost. After what seemed like an eternity, Alara arrived at the heart of the ancient realm. There, in a chamber bathed in a soft, golden light, stood a being of pure light and energy. It was the celestial of fate, the one who had woven the threads of the universe together since the dawn of time. "You have come," the celestial said, its voice like the hum of distant stars. "The prophecy is not just about the end of the city of stars, but the end of all things. It is a cycle, one that has repeated itself countless times. The stars must fall, and the darkness must rise, for only in the darkness can the new world be born." Alara's heart ached. But why? Why must everything end? The celestial's form flickered, and it seemed to grow more distant. "Because without the end, there can be no new beginning. The stars, the city, and all that you know must fall, so that something greater can take their place. You, Alara, are the key. You must decide whether to fight against the prophecy, or to embrace it." Alara stood before the celestial, torn between hope and despair. The city she loved, the people she had sworn to protect, it would all be gone. But the celestial spoke of a new world, a rebirth that could come after the fall. Could she truly embrace such an end? In the stillness of the chamber, Alara closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The stars had always been her guiding light. Perhaps it was time to let them go, to allow the prophecy to unfold as it must. She placed the pendant in her hand, feeling the warmth of the celestial flame as it pulsed with energy. "I accept," Alara whispered. "I accept the prophecy. The end will come, but from it, a new beginning will rise." The stars fell from the sky that night, as the city of stars faded into the darkness. But from the ashes of the old world, a new dawn broke. A world where light and darkness existed in harmony, where the cycle of creation and destruction would continue forever. Alara, now a legend, stood at the threshold of the new world, watching as the first stars of the new age began to shine. The prophecy had come to pass, and with it, the promise of a new beginning. As the stars faded into the abyss, the city that once glittered like a jewel above the clouds crumbled to dust. The people of the city of stars, those who had once been guided by the light of the celestials, vanished into the shadows. The streets, now silent and empty, held the echoes of a civilization long past. But Alara did not mourn the fall of the city. She had accepted the prophecy, knowing that sometimes the end was necessary to make way for something new. The celestial flame in her hand pulsed, its light dimming but not extinguishing. She had passed the final trial, and with her acceptance of the prophecy, she had become the bridge between the old world and the new. In the vast, empty expanse that stretched before her, a faint glimmer began to form. It was the beginning of a new star, a single point of light in the darkness. Alara watched in awe as the light grew, swirling and expanding, becoming a new world, a new city, a new civilization. The people of the new world emerged from the darkness, their faces filled with wonder and hope. They had no memory of the city of stars, but they carried within them the seed of its legacy, its dreams, its aspirations. They were the children of the prophecy, reborn in the light of the new dawn. Alara stood at the edge of the new city, watching as life began anew. The first flowers bloomed from the cracked earth, and the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the promise of a brighter future. She knew that the end had been necessary, but the beginning was just as important. Years passed, and the new world flourished. The people who had once lived in the shadow of the celestials now stood on their own, their hearts filled with hope and purpose. They built cities, explored the land, and learned from the wisdom of the stars. But Alara, though still a part of this world, knew that her role was far from over. She had been chosen as the keeper of the stars, the one who would guide the people through the cycles of light and darkness. The celestial flame had passed into her care, and she became its guardian, watching over the stars that would guide the new civilization. She had learned that the prophecy was not just about the end, it was about balance. Light and darkness were not enemies, but two sides of the same coin. Together, they created the world, and together, they would continue to shape its future. As Alara gazed at the stars each night, she could feel the weight of the prophecy still within her. But now, it was a comforting presence, not a foreboding one. The stars were her companions, her guides, and her inspiration. She would continue to protect the celestial flame and ensure that the balance between light and darkness was never lost. In the heart of the new city stood a grand temple, built in honor of the stars and the prophecy. Within its walls, the people gathered to celebrate the new age, the dawn of a new era where light and darkness coexisted in harmony. The temple's doors were always open, welcoming all who sought the wisdom of the stars. Alara, now older but still full of strength, stood at the temple's entrance, watching as the people arrived. She had lived through the fall of the city of stars, through the darkness of the prophecy, and had witnessed the birth of a new world. Her journey had been long, but it was far from over. She knew that the prophecy would one day return, that the stars would once again fade, and the end would come once more. But this time, she would not fear it. The prophecy was not something to dread, it was a reminder that the world was always in flux. That change was inevitable, and that from the darkness, light would always rise. As the first stars began to twinkle in the sky, Alara smiled. The legacy of the stars would continue, and the city of stars would live on in the hearts of those who believed in the power of the prophecy. And so, the cycle continued, as it always had. The stars would fall, the city would fade, and the prophecy of the end would be fulfilled. But with each passing cycle, a new world would rise, and a new dawn would break. Alara's name became a legend, a symbol of hope and resilience. She was the keeper, the one who had embraced the prophecy and helped usher in a new age. And as long as the stars shone in the sky, her legacy would endure, reminding all who came after her that even in the darkest moments, there was always the promise of a new beginning. As the years passed, the world continued to flourish under the guidance of the stars. Alara's presence as the keeper of the stars became more symbolic with each generation, her legacy living on in the hearts of the people she had saved. Yet, she could not rest. The stars had their own rhythm, their own ancient song, and she had come to realize that the true task of the keeper was not just to protect the flame of the past, but to prepare the next generation to carry the weight of the prophecy forward. In the City of Dawn, as it was now called, a new council of guardians was formed. These guardians were chosen not by birthright, but by their deeds, those who had proven themselves in the trials of light and darkness, just as Alara had. They were entrusted with the knowledge of the prophecy and the sacred duty of ensuring the harmony between light and darkness. Alara's once bright eyes were now soft with the wisdom of countless years, and yet she never grew tired. The prophecy that had once seemed like a curse was now a guide, and with each generation, she saw how it shaped the world for the better. The city thrived, the people lived in peace, and the stars continued to guide them, illuminating their path. But even as the guardians watched over the balance of light and darkness, a whisper stirred in the winds, a faint reminder that the prophecy was not complete. There would come a time when the cycle would need to repeat, when the stars would once again fall, and the City of Dawn would face its final trial. Alara knew that this was inevitable, but she had faith in the future. The people she had helped raise would be ready when the time came. One evening, as Alara stood beneath the vast expanse of the night sky, a single figure appeared on the horizon. It was a traveler, cloaked in darkness, yet his presence did not feel threatening. In fact, there was a strange calm about him, as if he were a messenger sent by the stars themselves. He approached Alara, and she could sense the weight of his words before he even spoke. "Keeper of the stars," the traveler said, his voice echoing softly in the stillness of the night, "I have come to remind you of what you already know. The cycle is not complete. There will come a time when the end must come again, and the stars will fall once more." Alara did not flinch, nor did she show fear. She had expected this day, for she understood the nature of the prophecy better than anyone. "I know," she replied, her voice steady. "But the stars are not merely harbingers of doom. They are the heralds of a new dawn. The end is only a beginning in disguise." The traveler nodded solemnly. "You have learned much, Keeper. But there is something more you must understand. There is a force in the shadows, a darkness that has been growing, not just in the world, but in the hearts of men. It seeks to twist the prophecy, to turn the end into something far worse." Alara's heart tightened. "A darkness? You mean something more than the natural cycle?" "Yes," the traveler said. "This darkness is not part of the cycle. It is a force of corruption, a malevolent entity that seeks to consume the light and disrupt the balance. It will seek to rewrite the prophecy, to make the end permanent." With the traveler's words echoing in her mind, Alara called the guardians together. They gathered in the great hall, where the stars above the city shimmered like 1,000 silent witnesses. The time had come to face a new threat, one that sought not only to destroy the city of dawn but to erase the cycle itself. The guardians prepared for war, but this would not be a typical battle. They could not fight the darkness with force alone. They would need to confront it within the hearts of the people, within the very essence of the prophecy. They began to seek the lost teachings of the celestials, ancient texts that spoke of the balance between light and darkness and the rituals that could strengthen the stars' power. Alara, now older but more resolute than ever, led the search for the key to stopping this corruption. She traveled to forgotten realms, to places where the stars' light had not reached for centuries. She spoke to the ancient spirits of the earth, the guardians of the world's forgotten history, seeking answers that had been lost to time. The journey was long and perilous, but Alara's determination never wavered. She knew that the future of the world depended on her success. As the darkness grew stronger, strange things began to happen in the city of dawn. The stars flickered, as if they were struggling to remain alight, and the people began to whisper of dreams that spoke of a great fall. The corruption had begun to seep into the hearts of the people, twisting their desires, filling them with greed and fear. The guardians, though brave, were no match for the unseen force that had already taken root. It was not until Alara uncovered the ancient secret of the celestials, the Song of Stars, that she realized the true nature of the darkness. It was not just a shadow that could be fought. It was a fracture in the very fabric of the prophecy, a ripple in the flow of time that threatened to unravel the stars themselves. The Song of Stars was a melody, a harmony of light and darkness that had been woven into the very essence of the universe. It was said that when the stars began to fall, the song would fade, and with it, the last thread of balance. Only by finding the lost harmony could the darkness be sealed away. Alara understood that her role as the keeper was far greater than she had ever imagined. She was not just a protector of the stars, she was the custodian of the song. And if she did not act, if she did not restore the harmony, the end would come not as a cycle, but as an eternal darkness. With the fate of the world hanging in the balance, Alara and the Guardians embarked on a final quest to restore the Song of Stars. They journeyed deep into the heart of the universe, to the place where the fabric of time and space itself converged. There, in the heart of all creation, Alara sang the Song of Stars for the first time in centuries. The sound of her voice echoed through the cosmos, a melody that brought light to the darkest corners of the universe. As the song grew louder, the darkness began to recede, the stars shone brighter, and the cycle of creation was restored. The prophecy had not been wrong. The end had come, but it had brought forth a new beginning. The Song of Stars would continue to guide the people, and the darkness would never again threaten the balance. Alara, now an eternal part of the song, faded into the light of the stars, her legacy immortalized in the melody of the cosmos. And so, the world continued, a place where light and darkness danced in harmony. And the prophecy remained as a reminder that every end is merely the beginning of a new cycle. The stars shone brighter than ever, and the Song of Stars echoed through the ages, a timeless melody that would never fade. The people of the City of Dawn, now descendants of the Guardians, lived in peace, knowing that they carried within them the strength to protect the balance. And every night, as the stars twinkled above, they would remember the prophecy, the keeper of the stars, and the song that had saved them all. The world, having passed through trials both ancient and new, flourished in the light of the restored prophecy. The people, under the guidance of the Guardians and the Song of Stars, began to understand their true connection to the universe. They no longer viewed the stars as distant, unreachable objects in the night sky, but as living entities, forever intertwined with the fates of all. As the years turned into centuries, the City of Dawn became a beacon not only of light but of wisdom. People from distant lands, drawn by the tales of the prophecy and the restoration of the song, came to learn the secrets of the stars. Alara's name was etched into the histories of every culture, her legacy immortalized in songs, stories, and ceremonies. The celestial flame was passed down through the generations, now a symbol of hope and unity, reminding the people that they were never alone in the vastness of the cosmos. Yet, in the quiet corners of the world, there were those who questioned the balance. A new movement, born of fear and doubt, whispered of a future when the song would fall silent once again. These voices, though small at first, grew louder over time, warning of the dangers of relying too heavily on the stars and the prophecy. Some argued that the people should turn inward, seeking their own strength rather than trusting in the guidance of an ancient force. Far from the shining walls of the City of Dawn, a dark figure emerged from the shadows. It was neither human nor celestial, but something born from the remnants of the forgotten darkness. This figure, cloaked in obsidian robes, walked the forgotten paths of the old world, seeking the places where the song had once faltered. This being, known only as the Silent Shadow, carried with it a deep, unsettling knowledge. It understood the fragility of the balance, the delicate thread that connected the stars, the world, and all of existence. It knew that, even in the harmony restored by Alara and her guardians, there remained a weakness. The Song of Stars was a beautiful thing, but it was not invincible. It could be silenced again. The Silent Shadow's purpose was clear: to find the weakness in the song, to unravel the threads of the prophecy, and plunge the world into an endless, eternal night. For in the silence of the stars, it believed, true freedom could be found. Back in the City of Dawn, the movement that questioned the prophecy and the song began to gather followers. The teachings of the Silent Shadow, though unknown to most, had found fertile ground in the hearts of those who felt bound by the stars. These voices of dissent did not seek destruction, but instead believed that humanity must find its own way, without the interference of ancient prophecies. The Guardians, ever vigilant, took notice of this unrest. They began to debate: should the people continue to trust in the song? Or had they become too dependent on something beyond their control? Were they allowing the past to guide them, when perhaps the future needed a new path? Alara, though long gone in body, had left behind a legacy of wisdom that transcended her physical form. Her spirit, bound to the song, spoke to those who listened closely. In times of great doubt, her voice echoed in the hearts of the wise, reminding them that balance was not something to be feared but something to be nurtured. But the silent shadow had already begun its work. Slowly, it infiltrated the hearts of the people, sowing seeds of doubt in their minds. It whispered that they could be free without the song, without the prophecy. The world, it promised, could stand on its own. One fateful night, when the stars dimmed just slightly in the sky, the guardians gathered in the great hall of the city of dawn. They had felt a disturbance, a subtle pull in the fabric of time. Something was wrong. The song of stars was beginning to fade. Alara's spirit appeared before them in a vision, her form glowing softly with the light of the stars. "It has begun," she spoke. "The silent shadow is among you. It seeks to sever the ties between the people and the prophecy. You must remember that the song is not a crutch, it is a guide. Without it, you will lose the balance, and the darkness will return." The guardians, knowing the importance of their task, sought to find the silent shadow. It had been hidden well, but their connection to the song allowed them to trace the subtle ripples it left in the world. They knew that they could not defeat this enemy with force alone. They had to restore the trust of the people, to remind them why they had once followed the stars. The final confrontation took place in the heart of the world, where the first stars had been born. It was a place of great power, where the fabric of the universe was thin, and the song of stars was strongest. Here, the guardians faced the silent shadow, who had come to silence the song once and for all. "You cannot defeat me," the silent shadow hissed. "The prophecy is a lie. The stars are but echoes, fading away. Without them, the world will be free." But the guardians, their hearts full of resolve, stood firm. "The prophecy is not a lie. The stars are not fading, they are eternal," one of the guardians spoke, their voice carrying the weight of truth. The battle that followed was not one of violence but of words, of conviction. The silent shadow fought with doubt, with fear, but the guardians fought with the light of truth. As they sang the song of stars together, the darkness began to recede, unraveling with each note. The silent shadow's form wavered, and its grip on the hearts of the people loosened. In the end, the silent shadow faded into nothingness, a mere whisper in the wind, powerless against the strength of the truth. The song of stars resonated once more, stronger than ever, and the balance was restored. With the defeat of the silent shadow, peace returned to the city of dawn. The people, once again united by the song, understood that their strength did not come from rejecting the prophecy but from embracing it. The stars, as they had always been, were not masters but guides. The prophecy was not a burden but a reminder of the eternal cycle of life. The guardians, now more than ever, watched over the world, ensuring that the balance between light and darkness remained intact. Alara's legacy lived on in every person who trusted in the stars, in every heart that sang the song. And so, the world entered a new era, one where the people no longer feared the end. For they understood that the end was merely another step in the endless dance of creation. The stars would always shine, and the song of stars would never fall silent again. The victory over the silent shadow, though monumental, was not the end of the journey for the city of dawn. With peace restored, the people now had to face a new challenge: how to maintain the balance that had been so nearly lost. The prophecy had proven true, but its power lay not in its foretelling of the end, but in its ability to guide the people through darkness toward light. The guardians, now fully aware of the delicate nature of this balance, worked tirelessly to ensure that the Song of Stars was not just a relic of the past, but a living force that could continue to guide the generations to come. They shared the wisdom of Alara's legacy, teaching the children of the world how to listen to the whispers of the stars and the subtle threads of the prophecy that wove through their lives. As the years passed, the people began to understand that the song was not just about the stars themselves, but about the harmony between all things: the earth, the sky, the people, and the unseen forces that shaped their destinies. The song was a reminder that all life, in its infinite variety, was connected. The stars were not distant gods to be worshipped, but companions to be understood. The movement of doubt that had once threatened the song and the prophecy slowly faded into history. Those who had once questioned the stars now saw the wisdom in the song, and they too joined in the chorus of voices that filled the air with hope and unity. As the world flourished, a new generation arose, born under the light of the stars, raised on the teachings of the guardians. Among them, a child was born, who would come to be known as the celestial flame. This child, whose name was Solara, carried with them a spark of the stars themselves. From an early age, Solara demonstrated an uncanny connection to the song of stars. They could hear its whispers in the wind, feel its presence in the rhythm of the earth, and see its patterns in the movements of the stars above. It was as if the prophecy had reached its final culmination in Solara's living embodiment of the balance between light and dark. Solara's arrival was not heralded by great fanfare or signs in the heavens, but by a quiet understanding among the guardians that their work was nearing its final stage. The song had guided them to this point, and it was now clear that the next chapter in the prophecy would be written by Solara. As Solara grew, so too did their understanding of the world and the stars. They learned from the guardians, from the people, and from the song itself. It was clear that their purpose was not to lead in the way that Alara had, but to unify the world in a new way by awakening the full potential of the people. The prophecy had always been about balance, but Solara saw that balance was not a static thing. It was an ever-changing, living force that required constant attention and care. The stars themselves, Solara realized, were not just symbols of the past, but guides for the future. The celestial flame, in its quiet yet radiant way, began to bring people together, urging them to listen not only to the stars but to each other. The Song of Stars was no longer just a guide for the individual, it had become a call for collective unity. A reminder that the strength of the world lay in the connections between all beings. As Solara's influence grew, so too did the harmony between the people and the stars. The Great Convergence, as it came to be known, marked a time when all the realms Earth, Sky, and Star began to align in perfect unity. It was a time when the barriers between the physical and spiritual worlds grew thin, and the Song of Stars resonated with unparalleled strength. The guardians, now elders, watched with pride as Solara led the way into this new era. The song no longer only guided the people, it became a celebration of life itself. Every individual, every community, and every star was seen as part of the same whole, and the world flourished as never before. But even in this time of great peace, there were whispers in the shadows. The silent shadow, though banished, had left its mark on the world, and some of its ideas still lingered. A small faction of individuals, once touched by the darkness, began to sow seeds of dissent once again. They whispered that the balance was too fragile, that the Song of Stars was not enough to guide them forever. The peace of the Great Convergence was soon tested when a new, unforeseen challenge arose. Strange occurrences began to shake the world: storms of unnatural ferocity, earthquakes that tore through the lands, and stars that flickered in the night sky. As if uncertain of their place in the heavens, people grew fearful, wondering if the song was failing them once again. Solara, undeterred by the rising panic, gathered the guardians and the people for a final gathering. In the heart of the City of Dawn, beneath the glowing light of the stars, they stood together, united in their resolve. Solara spoke to them with great wisdom, as one who had long listened to the song. "The stars do not fail," Solara said, their voice steady and sure. "It is we who have lost our way. We must listen, once again, to the song and to each other. The trials we face are not punishments, but tests. The stars have always guided us through darkness, but it is our own hearts that must lead us through the trials ahead." The people, inspired by Solara's words, rallied together once more. They came to understand that the challenges they faced were not signs of failure, but opportunities for growth. The Song of Stars had never promised an easy path, but it had promised guidance through the darkest of times. With renewed strength, the people of the world, led by Solara and the Guardians, weathered the trials that came their way. The storms subsided, the earth healed, and the stars shone brighter than ever. They had learned that the balance was not something to be taken for granted, but something that had to be actively maintained. And so, the Song of Stars continued, an eternal melody that connected the people to each other, to the earth, and to the heavens. Solara, now fully understanding their role, became the embodiment of the song, a beacon of hope and unity for generations to come. The prophecy had not ended, it had merely begun a new chapter, one that would continue for as long as the stars shone in the sky. The people of the City of Dawn, and all the realms, understood now that the end of one age was simply the beginning of another. And in the eternal dance of light and darkness, they would always find their way. As the generations passed, Solara's legacy flourished throughout the land. The world had entered an era of peace and prosperity, yet even in the tranquility of this age, there was a constant awareness that balance was delicate, and the future uncertain. The stars, though ever present, were not passive observers of human affairs, they were companions on a shared journey. Solara, now an elder, began to pass on the mantle of leadership, preparing the world for the challenges that might lie ahead. To ensure that the Song of Stars would continue to guide the people for centuries to come, Solara established the Starborn Covenant, a union of people from all corners of the world. The Covenant's purpose was to safeguard the wisdom of the stars, to teach the next generations how to hear their whispers, and to preserve the delicate balance between light and dark. The Covenant was not a ruling body, but a community of keepers, each chosen not by blood, but by their connection to the stars and their commitment to harmony. The first members of the Starborn Covenant were chosen not only for their wisdom and insight but for their ability to inspire hope and unity among the people. Each member was trained in the ways of the song, learning to listen to the subtle changes in the sky and the earth. They were taught the ancient rituals that had once been part of the prophecy, and how to discern the signs in the heavens that guided the world. The Covenant's influence spread far and wide, ensuring that the Song of Stars was not only known but felt in the hearts of all. Though the world had entered a time of peace, the balance was never fully immune from the forces of darkness. The silent shadow, while driven into hiding, had not been eradicated entirely. From the shadows, it whispered to those discontent with the status quo, feeding on fear, greed, and doubt. Over time, a group of individuals, known as the Duskborn, began to rise in secret. These were people who had once been part of the Starborn Covenant but had turned away, seduced by the allure of power and the promise of domination. They sought to unravel the Song of Stars, believing that by silencing the stars, they could seize control of the world and reshape it to their desires. They believed that the prophecy was a lie, and the only way to achieve true power was by casting aside the balance that had been so carefully nurtured. The Duskborn operated from the shadows, sowing discord and doubt wherever they went. They infiltrated key positions within the Starborn Covenant, slowly poisoning the hearts of the leaders, turning them away from the light. Their whispers spread like poison, clouding minds and twisting the truth. Slowly but surely, the shadow of doubt crept over the world once again. As the Duskborn's influence grew, so too did the dissonance in the world. The harmony that had once existed between the people, the earth, and the stars began to wane. The stars themselves seemed to dim, as if the celestial flame that had once burned so brightly was flickering out. There was a palpable sense of unease that spread across the world like a storm on the horizon. In response to this growing darkness, a new hero emerged. Her name was Lyra, a descendant of Solara, born under the first light of the twin moons. Lyra was a child of prophecy, born not to lead, but to restore the lost harmony between the people and the stars. She had been raised in the teachings of the song, and from a young age, she had heard the whispers of the stars, calling her to action. Lyra was unlike any other, for she was the first to fully embrace the true nature of the song of stars, not as a guide to power, but as a bridge between all worlds. She understood that light and darkness were not enemies, but opposing forces that had to work in harmony. Her journey would not be one of conquest or dominance, but of reconciliation. She sought to unite those who had fallen away from the song, to remind them of the eternal truth that had once guided them. The time had come for the final reckoning. Lyra, accompanied by a small group of trusted allies, set out to confront the Duskborn and the darkness that had infiltrated the Starborn Covenant. She knew that the task would not be easy. She would have to face those who had once been her mentors, and those who had betrayed the song. But she also knew that the stars had not abandoned the world. They were merely waiting for her to hear their call. As Lyra journeyed across the land, gathering allies and uncovering the secrets of the Duskborn, the stars began to grow brighter once again. The people, inspired by her courage, began to return to the teachings of the song. The celestial light began to shine through the cracks of the darkness. And the world held its breath as the final battle for the balance of all things approached. In the heart of the city of dawn, beneath the glowing lights of the stars, Lyra stood before the assembled leaders of the Covenant. The Duskborn had revealed themselves, their twisted forms now visible to all. They had come to claim the stars for themselves, to silence the song once and for all. But Lyra, standing tall, did not fear the darkness. The stars do not belong to any one of us, Lyra spoke, her voice clear and unwavering. They belong to all of us. They are the light that guides us through the darkness. They are the thread that binds the earth to the heavens. If we destroy them, we destroy ourselves. And so, I call upon the light within each of you. Remember the song. Remember the balance. With those words, the final battle began. The clash between the forces of light and darkness was fierce, shaking the very foundations of the world. The stars above shone brighter than ever, as if lending their strength to Lyra's cause. The Duskborn, though powerful, were no match for the unity and resolve of those who stood with her. The battle raged on, but it was clear that the light was prevailing. In the end, it was not the strength of armies or the might of warriors that triumphed, but the song of stars itself. The Duskborn, unable to withstand the resonance of the song, faltered and fell. Their power crumbled as the stars above illuminated the world, dispelling the shadows once and for all. Lyra, standing amidst the ruins of the battlefield, raised her hands to the sky. The song of stars echoed through the land, its melody now a triumphant anthem of unity and peace. The people, once again united, celebrated the victory of light over darkness, and the stars, once again, shone brightly in the heavens. With the fall of the Duskborn and the restoration of harmony, the world began its healing process. The stars, once dimmed by the shadows of greed and fear, now glowed with an even greater brilliance. The Song of Stars, restored to its rightful place as the guiding force of the world, was heard in every corner of the land. The people, who had long been divided by differences and doubts, now stood united, their hearts beating to the same celestial rhythm. Lyra, though victorious, knew that this was not the end of the journey, but merely the beginning of a new chapter. She had brought balance back to the world, but balance was a fragile thing. It required constant attention and care. The Starborn Covenant, once again revived, became a living embodiment of this balance. Its members were not rulers, but humble servants of the stars and the people, guiding the world toward an era of enlightenment and peace. In the years that followed, Lyra continued to travel, spreading the message of the song and ensuring that the balance between light and darkness remained intact. The stars, she realized, were not just symbols of hope, they were a reminder that the universe was vast, and humanity was but one part of a greater whole. As she journeyed, she encountered new challenges and new wonders, but each time, she found that the Song of Stars was always there, guiding her steps. One of Lyra's most important tasks in the years that followed was the creation of the Celestial Gardena's sacred place where the people could come to reconnect with the stars. It was a place of learning, meditation, and reflection, where the Song of Stars could be heard most clearly. The garden was not just a physical space, but a spiritual one as well, a symbol of the harmony that had been restored between the earth and the heavens. The celestial garden became a pilgrimage site for those who sought enlightenment. It was a place where young and old alike could come to hear the whispers of the stars and learn the ancient teachings of the song. Those who visited the garden found themselves renewed, filled with a sense of peace and purpose. It was a living testament to the unity that had been forged between the stars and the people. The garden also served as a meeting place for the Starborn Covenant, where they would come together to discuss the challenges of maintaining the balance and ensuring that the song continued to guide the world. It became a beacon of hope, a place where the people could look to the future with optimism and resolve. As the years turned into decades, a new generation of leaders began to rise. These were the children of the stars, young people who had been born under the light of the twin moons, and who had grown up hearing the Song of Stars in their hearts. They were the heirs to Lyra's legacy, inheriting not only the teachings of the song, but the responsibility to protect the balance of the world. The children of the stars were taught not just the ways of the stars, but the importance of compassion, understanding, and unity. They were trained to listen, to understand the needs of the people, and to make decisions that were in harmony with the natural world. They understood that true power did not lie in control, but in cooperation, and that the greatest strength was found in unity. Lyra, now an elder, looked upon the children of the stars with pride. She knew that the future of the world was in good hands. The Song of Stars had been passed down through the generations, and its light would continue to shine brightly for centuries to come. As the years passed, the world continued to thrive under the guidance of the Song of Stars. The darkness that had once threatened to consume the world had been vanquished, but the people knew that the balance could never be taken for granted. They continued to listen to the stars, to learn from them, and to ensure that the harmony between the earth and the heavens was maintained. Lyra, now much older, stood beneath the twinkling stars once more. She could feel the song resonating in her heart, its melody as clear and pure as it had ever been. She knew that her time was coming to an end, but she was at peace. The world had been restored to its rightful balance, and the stars would continue to guide it, long after she was gone. With a final glance at the stars above, Lyra whispered, "The song will never end. It is eternal." And as she spoke those words, the stars shone brighter than ever, their light spreading across the sky in a dazzling display of brilliance. The Song of Stars would continue to guide the world, and its melody would echo in the hearts of all who listened, forever and always. Centuries passed since the final battle between the forces of light and darkness, and yet the Song of Stars continued to resonate throughout the land. Lyra's name had become a legend, and her legacy was woven into the fabric of the world. The celestial garden remained a sacred site, a living monument to the balance she had fought so hard to protect. Yet, as with all things, time began to bring its inevitable changes. The world that had once been united by the song began to shift once again. New civilizations had risen, old ones had faded, and the stars, though still visible in the night sky, were becoming harder to hear. The echoes of the past, once clear and resonant, had begun to fade. The teachings of the song were no longer passed down with the same fervor as before. In some corners of the world, people had begun to lose their connection to the stars. Caught up in the distractions of progress and the demands of the modern age. But even in the face of this change, the song never ceased. It pulsed quietly beneath the surface, waiting for those who would listen. And as the world's future seemed uncertain, a new generation began to rise, one that would once again reignite the spark of the song and restore its full power to the world. In the bustling cities of the modern world, a young woman named Celine felt a deep, inexplicable pull towards the stars. She had always been drawn to the night sky, often finding herself lost in the shimmering constellations. But as time went on, she began to hear something like a faint melody carried on the wind. It was soft at first, like the whispers of a long-forgotten dream, but it grew clearer with each passing day. Celine was a starseeker, though she did not yet know it. In her heart, she carried the bloodline of Lyra, though the connection had long since been obscured by time. She was a descendant of the children of the stars, born not to lead, but to listen. She was the one who would awaken the song from its slumber and reconnect the people with the light of the stars. One evening, as she stood on a hill overlooking the city, the melody became impossible to ignore. It called to her, urging her to seek out the truth of the ancient prophecy. The stars were speaking to her, guiding her to a place she had never been, somewhere forgotten by time but known to her soul. And so, with nothing but a sense of purpose and the guiding pull of the stars, Celine set off on a journey to uncover the secrets that had been buried for so long. Her path was uncertain, but she was certain of one thing: the Song of Stars was not gone. It was simply waiting to be remembered. After months of travel, Celine found herself standing at the edge of a vast desert. Legend spoke of a temple, hidden in the heart of this arid land, where the Song of Stars had once been sung in its purest form. It was said to be a place of great power, where the stars themselves had descended to touch the earth. As Celine journeyed deeper into the desert, the sun beat down mercilessly, and the land seemed endless. But she pressed on, guided by the melody in her heart and the stars above. The desert whispered to her, as if the very sand and wind were alive, urging her forward. And after what felt like an eternity, she arrived at the ruins of the lost temple. The temple was a towering structure, half buried in the sands of time. Its walls were adorned with ancient carvings, telling the story of a time long past, when the stars had walked among the people. But despite the beauty of the temple, there was an unsettling silence. The song had been silenced for far too long. Inside the temple, Celine discovered an altar, bathed in the soft glow of starlight. The altar was inscribed with symbols she had seen before, symbols from the prophecy. She knew then that she had found the heart of the song, the place where the melody had been born. As she knelt before the altar, a soft voice whispered through the temple. It was not a voice she could hear with her ears, but one she felt deep in her soul. The voice spoke of a time of renewal, of the coming of a new starborn leader. Someone who would restore the song to the world and reawaken the balance between light and darkness. Celine closed her eyes and focused on the ancient symbols on the altar. She reached out with her mind, and as she did, a surge of energy flowed through her. The stars above seemed to shift, their light growing brighter as if they were responding to her presence. And then, as if a door had been opened, the song of stars flooded her heart. The melody was pure, sweet, and powerful. It resonated within her like a living thing, and she knew at that moment that the stars had chosen her. She was the new star seeker, the one who would restore the balance, the one who would ensure that the song would never again be forgotten. With the song now pulsing within her, Celine returned to the world she had left behind. She knew that her journey was far from over. There were still many who had forgotten the song, and many more who would need to be reminded of its power. But she was ready. She was the voice of the stars, and she would sing their melody until it echoed through the hearts of all. The stars, once dimmed by time and darkness, now shone brighter than ever. And with each step Celine took, the song of stars grew stronger, resonating through the land, calling the people back to the light. As Celine traveled from city to city, village to village, she found that the stars had not been forgotten entirely. There were still those who remembered the old ways, who carried the light of the song within them. Together, they formed a new covenant tone that would ensure the song would never again fade into silence. Celine knew that her journey was just the beginning, and that the song would continue long after she was gone. It would echo through the ages, carried on the wind, sung by those who listened. The Song of Stars was eternal, a reminder of the balance between light and darkness, a testament to the power of unity and hope. And as the stars watched over the world, their melody continued to guide the hearts of all who listened, forever and always. Years passed since Celine's return from the lost temple, and the Song of Stars had grown in strength. Its melody resonated through the hearts of many, calling to the forgotten and the lost, uniting them under a single, radiant banner. The new Starborn Covenant, a diverse and harmonious collective of sages, mystics, and ordinary people, now spread the wisdom of the stars across the world. But even as the song continued to heal and unify, a quiet unrest stirred within the heart of the world. Whispers spoke of a new darkness that was emerging from the shadows, a force not of destruction, but of corruption, one that sought to twist the song for its own purposes. Celine, now revered as the star seeker and leader of the new covenant, felt the weight of this responsibility. She could hear the faint tremors in the song, the dissonance creeping through the celestial harmony. It was a sign that someone was trying to unravel the balance she had worked so hard to restore. As a new prophecy unfolded, Celine realized the depth of the challenge that awaited her. The balance between light and darkness was fragile, and now, the line between them was becoming dangerously blurred. One evening, as Celine stood beneath the canopy of stars, her thoughts heavy with uncertainty, a shadow fell across the sky. It was not the shadow of night, but a living darkness, an unnatural void that seemed to devour the light itself. The people of the world had felt it, the sudden coldness that swept through the land, the fading of the stars' brilliance. The Song of Stars faltered, and for the first time since its rebirth, it seemed to stumble, its harmony dissonant. Celine called upon the Starborn Covenant, gathering the brightest minds and strongest souls from every corner of the world. The message was clear: they were facing a threat unlike any before, a force that sought to manipulate the song itself, to bend it to its will. The ancient darkness, once sealed away, had returned. A figure appeared on the horizon, being cloaked in black, its presence both familiar and alien. This was the Star Shadow, a lost soul from an ancient age, one who had once been a starborn but had fallen prey to the corruption of their power. Driven by a desire to control the song and wield its power for their own purposes, the Star Shadow sought to unravel the very fabric of the universe. Celine knew that she must confront this shadow, but she also knew that she could not do it alone. The Song of Stars had always been a collective force, a melody woven through the hearts of all. It was not her power alone that had restored balance, it was the unity of all who believed in the song. With the Starborn Covenant by her side, Celine journeyed to the heart of the world, where the celestial song had first been sung. The land here was ancient, filled with the echoes of the past and the weight of countless generations. At the center stood the Starspire, a towering stone structure, once the home of the stars, now silent and abandoned. There, in the shadow of the Starspire, Celine confronted the Star Shadow. The figure stood before her, shrouded in darkness, their voice a soft echo in the wind. "You cannot stop what has already begun," the Star Shadow said, their tone cold and detached. "The song is mine to control. It always has been." Celine's heart ached, not with fear, but with sorrow. She understood the Star Shadow's paint here fall from grace, the temptation of power. "The song is not yours to control," she said softly. "It is a gift, not a weapon. It belongs to all of us, to every living being, as long as we honor its balance." The Star Shadow laughed, a hollow sound that sent chills through the air. "Balance? There is no balance, only power. You fool yourself, thinking that this song can unite us all. Power is the only true force that can shape this world." Celine closed her eyes, the melody of the song swirling within her. She felt the presence of the stars, the ancient power that had created the world, filling her with its energy. With each breath, she drew in the light of the stars, her body becoming a conduit for their brilliance. As she opened her eyes, she saw the truth. The Star Shadow had forgotten what the song truly was. It was not about control, but about harmony. "I will not let you destroy it," Celine said, her voice firm with conviction. "The song is eternal, and it will survive this darkness." With those words, she raised her arms, and the Song of Stars burst forth from her heart. It was a powerful, radiant wave, a sound that reverberated through the very fabric of reality. The darkness shuddered, and for the first time, the Star Shadow faltered. In that moment, Celine understood. The true power of the song was not in its ability to dominate, but in its ability to heal. It was the harmony of all things, light and dark, joy and sorrow, creation and destruction woven together in a beautiful, eternal melody. The Star Shadow, overwhelmed by the power of the song, fell to their knees. The darkness surrounding them began to recede, unraveling like a veil in the wind. The melody of the song grew louder, filling the air with its divine resonance, until the darkness was no more. As the light restored balance, the Star Shadow was not destroyed, but transformed. The song had healed them, just as it had healed the world. Their form shifted, becoming a new being, a guardian of the song, one who would protect it from those who sought to use it for harm. Celine, standing victorious, felt the weight of the moment. She had faced the greatest challenge of her life, and the song had triumphed. The stars above shone brighter than ever, and for the first time, Celine understood the true meaning of her journey. It had never been about power, it had always been about understanding, compassion, and unity. The world entered a new age, one where the Song of Stars continued to guide and protect the people. Celine's name became a legend, not as a conqueror, but as a healer, a protector of the harmony between all things. And so, the stars continued to shine, their light eternal, their melody never ending. The Song of Stars would live on forever, carried in the hearts of all who chose to listen. For in the song, there was peace. Years passed after the defeat of the Star Shadow, and the world seemed to breathe easier. Under Celine's leadership, the Starborn Covenant flourished, spreading knowledge of the celestial song and the power of balance to all corners of the earth. The Starspire became a place of pilgrimage, where those who sought wisdom came to learn the truths of the universe. The Song of Stars, once thought to be a weapon, had become a beacon of hope and peace. But peace, as Celine knew all too well, was fragile. A new prophecy began to stir in the quiet corners of the world, one that foretold the rise of an even greater challenge. Whispers of an ancient being, not of darkness, but of pure light, spread across the land. This being, the luminary, was said to be the harbinger of a new one of unimaginable power and boundless creation. Celine, ever vigilant, felt the stirring of this prophecy deep within her. The song, for all its brilliance, had its limits. What if the luminary's light was so powerful that it could outshine the stars themselves, burning everything in its path? What if the balance she had fought so hard to restore would once again be threatened? It was during the night of the celestial alignment, when the stars themselves seemed to align in perfect harmony, that the luminary first appeared. A figure clothed in blinding light descended from the heavens, its radiance overwhelming to all who beheld it. The sky split open, revealing the source of its brilliance, a sphere of light that pulsed like a heartbeat, filling the world with an energy unlike anything anyone had ever felt. The luminary's arrival was met with awe, but also with fear. Its presence was undeniable. It spoke with a voice that resonated not only in the air, but in the hearts of all living beings. I am the light that binds all things. I am the beginning and the end. I am the future that transcends time. Celine watched from her tower, feeling the songs stir in response to the luminary's words. The stars pulsed in sync with the rhythm of the luminary's heart, but they too seemed fragile, vulnerable to the immense power of this being. I am Celine, the Starseeker. I have heard the prophecy, and I know what you seek, she called out into the void, her voice steady yet filled with uncertainty. But what is your purpose? Are you here to bring light, or to extinguish it? The luminary's form shifted, becoming more ethereal. I come to reshape the world, it said. To take what is broken and make it whole. To eliminate the darkness that lingers within your hearts. To guide you toward the true light that lies beyond the stars. Celine's heart fluttered with unease. The luminary was powerful, but its understanding of balance seemed incomplete. If it sought to eliminate darkness entirely, it would undo everything she and the Starborn Covenant had fought to protect, the delicate balance between light and dark, creation and destruction, life and death. The people of the world, enamored by the luminary's power and promise of eternal light, began to question the song. The Starborn Covenant's teachings, once embraced by all, were now in jeopardy. The Song of Stars, which had brought healing and unity, seemed insignificant next to the blinding brilliance of the luminary. Celine felt the ground shift beneath her. The very foundation of everything she had worked for seemed to crumble. As she meditated beneath the stars, she realized that the song was not a force of light. Alone it was the union of both light and dark, a harmony forged from the contrasts of existence. To allow the luminary to overtake the world would be to destroy the very essence of creation itself. She knew that she could not face the luminary alone. The world had to understand the importance of balance. The song was not something to be controlled, it was a reflection of the eternal cycle of all things. Celine called for a gathering of the covenant. We cannot let the luminary extinguish the stars, she said, her voice filled with both determination and sorrow. But neither can we allow ourselves to become vessels of darkness, as the star shadow once did. We must restore balance, for only in balance will the true light shine. The world stood at the crossroads of an age-old battle. On one side stood the pure light of the luminary, a force of unimaginable power that promised an existence free from suffering. On the other stood the Song of Stars, the melody of balance and unity, the belief that light and dark were not enemies, but partners in creation. The Starborn Covenant, armed with their knowledge of the song, prepared to face the luminary. Celine, standing at the helm of this resistance, understood that this was not a fight for dominance, it was a fight for the soul of the world. Under the celestial canopy, with the stars themselves watching, the final confrontation unfolded. The luminary, glowing with blinding radiance, sent waves of light crashing against the covenant, each burst threatening to unravel the very fabric of reality. But Selene stood strong. She raised her arms to the heavens, her voice weaving the song of stars into a tapestry of harmony. The stars began to pulse once more, their light mingling with the dark, creating a luminous symphony that resonated through the world. The luminary faltered, its light flickering as the song wrapped around it, not as a chain, but as a guide. "You cannot force light alone into the world," Selene cried out. "It is in the darkness that we grow, and in the light that we find our way." The battle raged on, but the luminary, overwhelmed by the song, began to shift. Its radiance faded into a softer glow, no longer blinding, but warm. The once unyielding figure softened, its power no longer a force of destruction, but one of creation. The luminary, now standing in balance with the song, looked upon Selene and whispered, "I see now. The light cannot exist without the dark." The luminary, no longer a harbinger of absolute light, chose to remain a guiding force within the world, a new member of the song. Selene's vision for the future had come to pass. The Song of Stars, now in perfect harmony, was eternal. The prophecy had not been about the end of the world, but the beginning of a new cyclone in which light and dark coexisted in unity, and where the wisdom of the song would guide all life for generations to come. And so, Selene's legacy lived on, as the world continued to sing its song, the stars above shining brightly, their melodies carrying into eternity. Years passed, and peace settled over the land. The Song of Stars continued to guide humanity, and the luminary became a beacon of hope and understanding. However, the world was changing in subtle ways that not even the most experienced seers could predict. The balance of light and darkness remained intact, yet there was something new stirring in the depths of the world, something ancient and forgotten. Selene, now older and wiser, stood upon the star spire, gazing at the stars. The once familiar constellations began to shift, as though responding to an unseen force. The song, always present in her heart, hummed softly. But there was an undercurrent of tension, a deep call, as if the stars themselves were urging her to listen. In the silence of the night, a voice echoed through the void, a voice both distant and near. It was the voice of the stars themselves, calling to her. The starborn are awakening. Selene's heart skipped a beat. The starborn, those who had once wielded the power of the stars, beings of great potential and knowledge, had long been thought to be a myth. Yet, their awakening meant that something far beyond the reach of her understanding was unfolding. "What is this?" Selene whispered to the stars. "What do you wish to tell me?" The voice responded, its tone both solemn and filled with urgency. "The song is in danger. A force that has long slept beneath the surface of the world stirs once more. The starborn must rise again to protect the harmony of the cosmos." Selene felt a deep chill run through her. The luminary, though now part of the song, had not been the end of the celestial struggle. Another force, something tied to the very core of the planet itself, was awakening. She felt the pull of destiny, the weight of her ancestors upon her shoulders. The future of the world rested on her next decision. She gathered the Starborn Covenant, now a thriving community, each member possessing a unique understanding of the song and the stars. Together, they would seek to uncover the truth behind the awakening of the Starborn, and what it meant for the world. Selene and her fellow Starborn journeyed to the ancient city of Eldara, a place said to hold the secrets of the first Starborn. Hidden beneath the city's ruins was a vast underground cavern, long forgotten by time. Within it lay the heart of the world, a place where the forces of creation and destruction met in equilibrium. It was said that the starborn could feel the pulse of the world's heart, the very source of the song. As Celine descended into the depths of Eldara, she could feel that the song's rhythm was off, a discordant note amidst the harmony. The deeper she went, the stronger the sensation became. It was as though something was trying to sever the connection between the stars and the earth. In the heart of the cavern, they found a vast, ancient crystal, pulsing with an eerie, dark energy. It was the source of the disturbance, a remnant of a time before the stars themselves had been born. The crystal was called the Obsidian Heart, and it was said to have been sealed away long ago. For it held the power to disrupt the song, to bring about chaos where there should have been harmony. "This is what is awakening," Celine said softly, her voice filled with a mix of awe and fear. "The Obsidian Heart, a force that predates the stars themselves. It is not a force of light or darkness, but of pure entropia power that unravels all things." The starborn, understanding the gravity of the situation, stood in silence. The Song of Stars, the very force that had brought balance to their world, was being threatened by a force older than time itself. The starborn were the key to stopping it, but how? The Obsidian Heart pulsed with a malevolent energy, casting dark shadows across the cavern. Celine could feel its power, its call to chaos, attempting to lure her into its embrace. She knew that the only way to stop it was to restore the balance between light and dark once more. "We must use the song," Celine said, her voice firm with conviction. "The song is the only force that can counter the heart's power. But we must sing it together, with every fiber of our being. The Song of Stars is not just a melody, it is the very foundation of existence. If we can harmonize with it, we can bring balance to the heart." The starborn joined her, each member of the covenant raising their voices in unison. The melody of the song echoed through the cavern, a pure and beautiful sound that filled the air with light. But as they sang, the Obsidian Heart fought back, its power growing stronger, the darkness threatening to overtake them. But Celine would not falter. She closed her eyes, allowing the song to flow through her, her heart attuned to the rhythm of the stars. She could hear their voices, their song, guiding her. This was not a battle of light against dark, but a battle for harmony. In one final, resounding crescendo, the song reached its peak. The Obsidian Heart trembled, its dark energy unraveling as the light of the stars poured into it. The crystal cracked, and with a blinding flash, it shattered into 1,000 pieces, its dark power dissolving into nothingness. The cavern fell silent. The pulse of the Obsidian Heart was gone, and in its place, there was peace. The Song of Stars, restored to its true harmony, resonated through the world, filling the hearts of all who listened with hope and understanding. Celine stood at the center of the cavern, her heart filled with both relief and sorrow. The balance had been restored, but at what cost? The awakening of the starborn had been necessary, but it had also revealed that the world was not static. The Song of Stars, though eternal, was a living force, constantly shifting, evolving, and adapting. The starborn covenant, stronger than ever, vowed to protect the song and ensure that the balance of the cosmos was maintained. They had faced the darkness within themselves and the world, and had emerged victorious. But they knew that their work was far from over. The stars above twinkled in the night sky, a silent reminder that the balance of the universe was a delicate one. And as long as the starborn sang the song, the world would remain in harmony. For now, although the Obsidian Heart was destroyed, the events that had transpired left a lasting mark on the world. The Song of Stars resonated with more clarity than ever before, but there were echoes, whispers in the silence between the stars. Celine could still hear them, faint but undeniable. The universe was healing, but not without its scars. Celine, now a beacon of wisdom, returned to the starspire, the sacred place where the covenant had once gathered. But this time, it felt different. The light of the stars shone brighter, but there was an underlying tension. A reminder that the balance was delicate and could once again be threatened by forces unknown. In the days that followed, other starborn, those from distant lands, arrived at the starspire, bringing news of strange occurrences in the far corners of the world. There were whispers of beings born not from the stars, but from the remnants of the darkness that had once sought to consume the heart of the world. These beings, called the Voidborn, were unlike anything the world had known. Though they were not as ancient as the Starborn, the Voidborn had the ability to manipulate the fabric of reality itself. They were not evil, nor were they good. They were merely creatures of the void, the space between stars, born from the void after the destruction of the obsidian heart. They existed to restore what was lost and to fill the emptiness left by the destruction of the dark force. But their presence posed a challenge. They began to disrupt the harmony of the song. Their nature was alien to the stars, and their arrival caused disturbances in the delicate balance of the cosmos. Celine could feel the unrest deep within the song. The stars, usually a steady presence, flickered with uncertainty. The Voidborn were multiplying, their influence spreading across the lands like a dark mist. They were not attacking, but their presence was corrupting the natural flow of energy that sustained life and the song. There was no malice in their actions, but their very existence was a contradiction to the Song of Stars. Their connection to the void, a place outside of the stars, created a rift. If left unchecked, this rift could tear apart the delicate fabric of the universe. Celine called upon the Starborn Covenant. Together, they gathered to find a solution. They could not destroy the Voidborn, for they were part of the balance, but neither could they allow their influence to destroy the harmony of the cosmos. A new path needed to be forged, one that would reconcile the song with the Voidborn. A way to integrate them into the cosmic order without allowing them to tip the scales toward chaos. The answer, Celine realized, lay in the forgotten rituals of the first Starborn. In the ancient texts, there was mention of a time when the void and the stars were one. In the beginning, the stars and the void existed in perfect balance, their energies interwoven, before the birth of the first Starborn. If she could unlock the secrets of that forgotten union, perhaps she could find a way to restore harmony once more. The ancient texts led Celine and the Covenant to a long-lost temple, deep within the forest of Eldara. A place where the Song of Stars was said to have first echoed in the world. Here, the first Starborn had sung the melody that united the heavens and the earth. Inside the temple, Celine uncovered a hidden chamber, an altar of crystal, its surface glowing with the light of the stars. On it, she found a scroll, ancient and worn, detailing a ritual known as the Celestial Binding. This ritual was said to be capable of weaving together the essence of the stars and the void, restoring the balance between light and darkness. However, the ritual was not without its dangers. It required the power of the Starborn and the Voidborn together, two opposing forces, each with its own nature. The ritual demanded a perfect union, a harmony between them. Any discord would rip the very fabric of existence apart. Celine knew what had to be done. The Covenant would travel to the heart of the world, where the Starborn and Voidborn could meet, and there, they would attempt the Celestial Binding. But as they prepared, a sense of dread settled over her. The Voidborn had not come to destroy, but to change. What if they were not meant to exist in the same world as the Starborn? What if their very union would unravel the Song of Stars in ways unforeseen? At the center of the world, where the pulse of the song was strongest, Celine and the Starborn gathered. The Voidborn, now numerous and powerful, stood at the edge of the gathering, their presence like a shadow that stretched across the stars. Together, they began the ritual. Celine sang the opening notes of the song, her voice resonating through the cosmos, calling to the stars, to the void, to the very heartbeat of the world. The Voidborn responded, their voices like a distant echo, resonating with the dark emptiness that lay between the stars. For a moment, the world stood still. The song and the void harmonized, their energies entwining in a delicate dance. Light and shadow, life and emptiness, balanced on the edge of a knife. Then, as the final notes of the song rang out, the harmony reached its peak. The celestial forces converged, the stars and the void merging in a brilliant flash of light. The very fabric of existence trembled, but instead of tearing apart, it was woven anew. The stars burned brighter, their light purer, and the void, once a place of chaos and destruction, became a space of potential on empty canvas for the stars to paint their stories. The balance had been restored, but the world had changed. The Song of Stars now included the Voidborn, a new chapter in the history of the cosmos. Celine, standing at the heart of the world, knew that this was not the end, but a new beginning. The song would continue, forever evolving, forever expanding. The stars would always sing, and now, the void would listen. And so, the world entered a new Aegea time of understanding between the light of the stars and the dark of the void. The Song of Stars continued, its melody now richer, its harmony deeper. Celine, now the leader of both Starborn and Voidborn, stood at the starspire once more, gazing at the night sky. The stars twinkled with new light, and the void between them was no longer a place of emptiness, but of infinite possibility. She smiled, knowing that the Song of Stars was eternal, ever-changing, ever-growing. The balance was not a destination, but a journey. And as long as the song was sung, the world would continue to turn, guided by the stars and the void, united in their harmony. As time passed, the world began to heal. The integration of the Voidborn with the Starborn brought about an era of unprecedented harmony. The once contradictory forces of light and darkness now coexisted, their energies blending together in new and profound ways. Yet, with this newfound unity, there arose a challenge no one had foreseen of identity and purpose. The Voidborn, once thought of as mere remnants of darkness, had begun to develop their own culture, their own sense of being. They no longer saw themselves as mere servants of the void, but as an integral part of the cosmos. The Starborn, on the other hand, felt a growing unease. They had always been the chosen of the stars, the protectors of balance. Now, with the Voidborn among them, they were no longer alone in their celestial mission. Celine, ever wise and compassionate, called for a gathering at the Starspire. It was time for the two peoples to confront their evolving relationship, and to understand what it meant to be both part of the stars and the void. The gathering was unlike any other the Starspire had ever seen. The air was thick with anticipation, and the stars above flickered in a rhythm that suggested something extraordinary was about to unfold. Celine stood at the center, her heart heavy with the knowledge of the task ahead. To unite the Voidborn and Starborn was no easy feat. Though the Song of Stars had woven them together, the journey ahead would test the bonds they had formed. The time has come, Celine began, her voice echoing through the chamber, to face the rifts that remain between us. We have embraced the harmony of the stars and the void, but harmony is not always without its struggles. A murmur rippled through the gathering. The Voidborn, their figures like shadows among the Starborn, waited in silence. They had accepted the song, but questions remained. They had given up the darkness they once embraced, but what were they now? Were they still of the void, or had they become something entirely new? Unity is not just a matter of power, Celine continued, her gaze sweeping across the assembled crowd. It is a matter of identity. We must ask ourselves who we are in this new world. Are we Starborn and Voidborn? Or are we something entirely different? One of the elders of the Voidborn, a figure known as Nyx, stepped forward. His voice was like the quiet hum of the void itself, deep and resonant. "We are the children of the void," Nyx said, his eyes gleaming with a soft, otherworldly light. "But we are not bound to it. We have come to understand that our purpose is not to remain in the shadows, but to bring balance to offer the silence that allows the stars to shine. We are not merely of the void anymore, but part of the greater cosmos." The Starborn listened intently. Their leader, Lyra, a figure of grace and strength, spoke next. "And yet, we have always believed that our destiny is to guard the stars. The void, once a place of darkness, has no place in our vision of the heavens. How can we protect the stars if we allow the very forces of emptiness to invade our realm?" Celine, sensing the growing tension, raised a hand to quell the rising voices. "We must understand that the void is not the enemy. The enemy is the fear of change. We must not fear the darkness that has become part of us, nor should we resist the light that has grown within the void." There was a long silence as the words settled in the hearts of all present. The truth was undeniable: there was no easy path forward. The forces of light and darkness, of stars and void, were not so easily reconciled. The song, though pure and eternal, was evolving, and with it, the very nature of existence itself. Celine proposed a trial, one that would allow both Starborn and Voidborn to experience the full depth of the cosmos. Each would journey to the heart of the void and the core of the stars, to truly understand both the light and the darkness. The journey would be dangerous. The void, though now part of the cosmic order, was still a place of mystery and unpredictability. The stars, though the source of all life, were far from perfect. Their light could be blinding, their power overwhelming. But this was the only way to find the true balance, the true meaning of unity. The trial was set to begin at the next full moon, a time when both the light of the stars and the shadow of the void would be at their peak. The participants would have to walk the line between these two extremes, understanding both the beauty and the terror that each represented. Celine, standing on the edge of the starspire, gazed at the stars and the void. The sky was vast, stretching infinitely in all directions. She could feel the song pulsing within her, a reminder of the delicate balance that she had fought so hard to restore. "It is not the stars alone that will guide us," she whispered. "It is the space between them, the silence where the void lies, that will teach us what it truly means to be whole." The trial began as the moon rose high in the sky, casting a pale light over the world. The chosen Starborn and Voidborn set out, each walking toward the heart of their respective realms. Celine, accompanied by Lyra and Nyx, ventured into the heart of the void. It was a place of pure emptiness, a vast expanse where nothing existed except the occasional flicker of distant stars. The air was thick with silence, and the stars seemed to vanish from view. There was no sound, no movement, only the profound stillness of space. As they walked, Celine felt the weight of the void pressing upon her. It was as if time itself had ceased to exist. The silence was deafening, and yet, it was in this silence that she felt most alive. She understood now that the void was not empty, it was full of potential. It was a space where anything could happen, where creation and destruction were born from the same emptiness. And yet, the void was also a place of loneliness, of isolation. It was a reminder that without the stars, without the light, the void would be nothing but an endless night. They continued their journey deeper into the heart of the void, knowing that soon they would come to understand the true nature of their existence and the delicate balance that must be maintained. As the trio journeyed deeper into the void, Celine, Lyra, and Nyx began to feel the weight of the ancient emptiness around them. Every step they took echoed in the stillness, as if the very air was holding its breath. Celine, though at peace with her connection to the void, felt a growing sense of something in unseen presence. It was as though the void itself was alive, waiting for them to uncover its secrets. Nyx, sensing her unease, spoke softly. The void is not something to fear, Celine. It is the silence that holds all possibilities. Here, in this expanse, nothing is fixed. Everything is born from it, and everything returns to it. We, too, are part of its endless cycle. Celine turned to Nyx, his words resonating in her soul. The void was not an enemy, it was the foundation of all things. Without it, there could be no stars, no life, no light. The more she walked through its vast emptiness, the more she felt the profound truth that had eluded her for so long. The void was not just a place of darkness, but the cradle of creation itself. As they pressed forward, the stars above them began to flicker. The void was changing. Where there had once been nothing, now the faintest glimmer of light began to emerge. It was as if the void itself was coming alive, stirring in response to their presence. "This is it," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling with awe. "The void is awakening." Celine felt a deep, primal connection to the energy that was beginning to rise. The stars, once distant and separate, were now part of the void's fabric. The line between light and dark had blurred, creating something new, something neither fully light nor dark, but a fusion of both. She realized that they were standing on the threshold of a new era. One where the boundaries between creation and destruction, life and death, would no longer be defined by opposition, but by unity. After what felt like an eternity of walking through the ever-deepening void, they arrived at the heart of the void, a place where the stars seemed to form a dense cluster, swirling and shifting in an otherworldly dance. Here, the essence of both light and darkness existed as one. "This is the center," Celine said softly, her voice reverberating with reverence. "Here, the stars are not just distant, cold lights, but living, breathing entities. The same is true for the void. Its darkness is not the absence of light, but the space from which all light emerges." Nyx stood quietly by her side, his expression thoughtful. "We must remember that both are needed. The stars are born from the void, and the void is shaped by the stars. Without either, the universe would be incomplete." As the trio stood there, gazing at the ever-changing dance of light and shadow, Celine began to understand. The stars and the void were not opposites to be reconciled, they were two sides of the same coin. Their relationship was not one of balance, but of interdependence. The light could not exist without the dark, and the dark could not exist without the light. In the distance, a figure emerged from the swirling mass of stars. It was another starborn, but this one radiated with an otherworldly brilliance. She was both familiar and unfamiliar to Celine. The figure's face was ageless, her eyes glowing like twin stars. Yet there was something about her that suggested she was ancient, a presence that transcended time itself. "I have waited for you," the figure said, her voice like the ringing of celestial bells. "You have come to the heart of both the stars and the void. It is here that the prophecy shall be fulfilled." Celine, Lyra, and Nyx approached the figure, each step weighed with anticipation. "Who are you?" Celine asked, her voice full of awe and wonder. "I am the guardian of the threshold," the figure replied. "I have watched over this place for eons, ensuring that the two realms, the stars and the void, remain in their eternal dance. But now, the time has come for you to understand the true meaning of unity." The guardian's words sent a shiver down Celine's spine. The prophecy, the one foretold by the stars themselves, was finally coming to fruition. This was the moment she had been destined to face. The prophecy speaks of a time when the starborn and the voidborn would walk the same path, the guardian continued. It speaks of a union of light and darkness, where the song of stars would blend with the silence of the void, creating a new harmony. But there is one more part to the prophecy, the final choice. The guardian's words echoed in the silence of the void. You, Celine, are the key to this final choice. You have the power to shape the future of both realms. Will you choose to preserve the duality of light and darkness, or will you forge a new path, one where the two become as one, forever united? Celine felt a weight in her heart, a responsibility unlike any she had ever known. She could feel the eyes of Lyra and Nyx upon her, the weight of their hopes and fears in their gaze. The path of duality has served us well, Celine began, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside her. But perhaps it is time for us to transcend it. Maybe the stars and the void, the light and the darkness, do not need to remain separate. Perhaps they were always meant to be one, just as we were. The guardian nodded, her expression solemn. Your choice will affect not only the future of your people but the future of all existence. The boundaries of light and dark will dissolve. The song of stars will evolve, and the void will no longer be something to fear, but to embrace. It will be a new beginning, but also a great challenge. Are you ready, Celine? For a long moment, Celine stood in silence, her mind racing. She thought of the world that had been torn apart by the conflict between the starborn and voidborn. She thought of the unity they had fought for, and the new world they had begun to build. And in that moment, she knew. It was not enough to simply restore the balance. It was time to transcend the old ways to create a new future, one where light and dark could coexist, not as separate forces, but as a unified whole. I am ready, Celine said, her voice unwavering. With her declaration, the stars above them flickered one final time, and the void responded, swirling in a cosmic dance of light and shadow. The prophecy had been fulfilled. The union of the starborn and voidborn was complete. Celine, Lyra, and Nyx returned to the world, forever changed. The stars and the void, now united in a single, harmonious flow, illuminated the skies with a new brilliance. The world no longer saw itself as divided by light and dark, but as a place where both forces were woven together in perfect unity. The prophecy had come true. The end of the old world had given way to the dawn of a new one. And with it, the future was brighter than ever. The days following the fulfillment of the prophecy were unlike any the world had seen before. The people of both the starborn and the voidborn watched in awe as the skies above shimmered with the light of 1,000 stars. Yet the vast emptiness of the void was no longer a place of fear. It had become a reflection of the stars themselves, beautiful, mysterious, and full of untapped potential. Celine, Lyra, and Nyx stood on the peak of the highest mountain, gazing out over the land that stretched beneath them. The air felt different now, infused with an energy that seemed to hum with life and possibility. The winds carried the scent of both the starlight and the void, and there was a stillness, a peace that had been absent for so long. This is what we fought for, Lyra said softly, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the last remnants of night were giving way to the soft glow of dawn. A world where light and dark no longer war with each other, but worked together to shape something new. Celine nodded, her heart swelling with a mixture of hope and fulfillment. It is a new beginning for all of us. The song of stars and the silence of the void have joined in harmony. There is no longer a need for fear, for division. The prophecy was not just a vision of the future, it was a reminder of what we are capable of when we understand that the greatest strength lies in unity, not separation. Nyx, who had remained silent for much of their journey, finally spoke, his voice steady and filled with a quiet wisdom. It is true. The world we have known is not the end. It is only a step in a much larger journey. There will always be challenges, but now we face them as one. The three of them stood there, knowing that their mission had been fulfilled, yet understanding that their work was far from over. They had united the starborn and voidborn, but the world still needed to heal from the scars of the past. The old conflicts and misunderstandings would not vanish overnight. But now, there was hope for a future where differences could be embraced, where both light and darkness could coexist and work together. The people began to rebuild, not just their homes and cities, but their hearts and minds. The two once divided races, the starborn and the voidborn, began to understand each other in ways they never had before. They learned that neither light nor dark was superior, but rather, they were essential parts of the same whole. In time, the two races no longer saw themselves as separate, but as one people, united by their shared experiences and newfound understanding. The land itself seemed to respond to this unity. Once barren fields now bloomed with vibrant, star-like flowers, and deep, shadowy forests flourished in ways never before possible. The balance between light and dark, once so fragile, had become a source of strength. As the years passed, Celine took on the mantle of leader, guiding the new world with a gentle yet firm hand. Her vision had always been one of unity, and now she saw that vision coming to life. But she knew that her role was not just as a ruler, it was as a bridge between two worlds. She continued to teach, to inspire, and to remind the people that their power lay in their ability to embrace their differences, to blend the light of the stars with the depth of the void. Lyra, ever the warrior, became a protector of the realm. She traveled from city to city, ensuring that the peace that had been forged was upheld. Her sword was not just a weapon of war, but a symbol of strength and resilience, a reminder that peace was something to be fought for, just as much as freedom. Nyx, the scholar and philosopher, continued his work as a guide to those seeking wisdom. His writings on the unity of the void and the stars became a cornerstone of the new education system, shaping the minds of generations to come. He often traveled alone, meditating on the mysteries of the universe, but always returning to share the knowledge he had gathered. Years turned to decades, and the world flourished. The once divided lands of the starborn and voidborn had become a thriving, united civilization. Cities and temples were built not just to honor the stars, but also the void, both equally revered for the roles they played in shaping existence. And one evening, as Celine stood at the edge of a balcony overlooking the vast expanse of the world she had helped create, she looked up at the stars. They had never shone brighter. The prophecy had come true, but not in the way anyone had expected. It was not a prophecy of destruction or cataclysm. It had been a prophecy of change, of transformation. The end of one world and the beginning of another. Celine closed her eyes and whispered softly to the stars. "Thank you for guiding me. Thank you for showing me the way." In that moment, she knew the journey was far from over. But now, with the world united, and the stars and void as one, there was nothing they could not face together. The prophecy of the stars and the void had been fulfilled not in destruction, but in creation. A new era had begun. And this time, it was one where the light and the dark would always be united. Celine, Lyra, and Nyx stood side by side on the highest peak of the world they had shaped, their gazes fixed on the horizon. The sky above them glimmered with the brilliance of 1,000 stars, and beneath their feet, the earth thrummed with the pulse of the void. The stars and the void had become one. They were no longer two separate forces, but a unified whole. And in this new world, light and darkness could coexist, not as opposites, but as partners in the eternal dance of the universe. It was a world where unity reigned, where differences were celebrated, and where the future was bright with infinite possibilities. And as Celine looked out at the endless horizon, she knew one thing for certain: this was only the beginning. As the years turned into centuries, the story of Celine, Lyra, and Nyx became more than just a tale. It was a legend untold around campfires and in great halls, passed down from generation to generation. The people spoke of the prophecy not as a warning of doom, but as a reminder of the strength that came from unity. It became known as the Song of the Stars, a melody sung by the people to remind them of their shared destiny. In the heart of the starborn city, a grand monument was erected, a towering spire of crystal, reaching into the heavens. The spire shone with the light of the stars, its surface reflecting the depth of the void, symbolizing the unity between the two realms. At its base, a plaque read, "In unity, there is no end. In light and shadow, we find our strength." The city continued to thrive as a beacon of hope, a place where the old divisions between the light and dark had been healed. The descendants of both the starborn and the voidborn lived side by side, their differences celebrated rather than feared. The new world they had forged was not perfect, but it was a place where all could live in peace and harmony, always striving for a better future. Celine, now an elder, stood before the monument one final time. Her hair had turned silver, but her eyes still held the same spark of determination. She had led her people through the darkest of times, and now, with the prophecy fulfilled, it was time for her to step down. "I've seen this world grow," she whispered to herself, "and now it's time for the next generation to take the reins." Lyra and Nyx stood beside her, their faces worn with age, but still filled with the same resolve they had carried all those years ago. "The world is ready, Celine," Lyra said, her voice strong as ever. "Yes," Nyx agreed, "the stars are aligned for a new beginning." With a final, lingering look at the city she had helped to build, Celine turned to face her companions. "Our journey is done, but there are always new roads to walk." And so, the three of them, legends in their own right, began their final journey into the unknown. They did not know what awaited them, but they knew that whatever it was, they would face it together, united by the bond that had carried them through the darkest and brightest moments of their lives. The story of the starborn city, of the prophecy, of the unity between the light and the dark, lived on. The people carried the legacy of the prophecy within them, knowing that no matter what challenges came their way, they would always have the strength to overcome them. In the nights to come, the stars would still shine brightly, reflecting the wisdom of the ancients. And in the quiet moments before dawn, when the world held its breath, a whisper would be heard across the lands, "In unity, there is no end. In light and shadow, we find our strength." And as the stars twinkled in the heavens, the people of the world knew that they would always be connected to one another, bound by the prophecy that had shaped their lives. That's the end of today's story. See you.